information. Hello everybody, I am Paul Ducklin from Sophos Naked Security, back for another week's Naked Security Live talk. A bit of a big topic from the European media this week. I know that this one got coverage in the US because I saw publications there saying, learn from what's happened in Europe in case this comes to the US. I don't think it's a huge problem in the US yet, but there's no reason why it shouldn't be from a technological point of view. And as you can see from the headline, it is "Beware Flubot," in quotes, a home delivery scam with a difference. Now, the name Flubot is unfortunate given that we're in the middle of a worldwide coronavirus pandemic. I think that some researchers just thought, hey, this thing's spreading like good old flu. You know, we've seen all over the place this particular scam, so they gave it that name for want of any better name because the crooks keep changing the way it works, and that's important. We'll look at that in a minute. So I'm going to show you some screenshots that have come from various parts of the world, but don't rely on those. We're going to be looking at general principles for protecting yourself and your phone against attacks of this sort. So the idea of this Flubot is it's very much, it starts very much like the sort of home delivery scams that we have covered on Naked Security Live before. And you're probably aware of this, particularly these have been a big deal since the coronavirus pandemic started. The crooks figured more and more people are using home deliveries than ever before. Many people are forced to do so. So what we'll do is we'll start shoving out text messages to people's phones, just like the courier companies do, saying, oh, there's a problem with the delivery, and they expect that you expect to click through to a website, and you may have done it 3 or 4 or 5 times with real home deliveries, and nothing bad happened. So the crooks think that if they can sneak their messages in there, in amongst messages like the ones you've seen before, you might click through, you might not notice you're on a fake site, you might put your credit card number or your password or your email address or your phone number or whatever it is into a fake page on a fake site. So you'll remember that's an example that's from a nakedsecurity.sophos.com article that I think we published around the middle of last year, 2020, when this thing became a big deal. You can see there it's a text message, it's greetings, blah blah blah, there's a URL, there's been a problem, so click here to sort out the delivery. And you probably know, if you've read on Naked Security before, that these things, the courier company changes. So they're trying to guess. They either know or they're guessing which courier company you're using. Sometimes they pick a company that's specific to your country. So it's more likely to ring a bell, like Canada Post in Canada or Royal Mail in the UK. We've seen those. Otherwise, DHL, FedEx, all that kind of stuff. And you know that the idea is that generally with these is that, in fact, the example I'm showing you here was one from Canada, where the website was tailored that if the visitor came from Canada, they knew to put up a Canada Post-like website to give it a bit of verisimilitude. And you know that the idea of these home delivery scams traditionally has been, you get the SMS, it's a short text message, obviously. It may even have a shortened URL in it. You're kind of less suspicious than you probably would be clicking a link in an email. And you know that what is supposed to happen next is, with these home delivery scams, there's a fake site. You might not be. Let me try and get the details where you can see them. So that's Canada Post. Your package is on the way. Hey, there's $1 you have to pay. So it's a completely fake site, and if you click next, where you get to the point that you pay that $1, it's typically a small amount, so you kind of think, well, if the crooks run off with $1, I don't really care. Of course, they're not wanting to run off with the $1. There won't even be a $1 charge. They are running off with your name, your address, your phone number, your credit card number, and possibly even the magic CVV code off the back. That means they can go and drain your credit card from another website somewhere else. So that's typically what we've been warning people to look out for with home delivery scams. Now, this Flubot business, which is run, it seems that it started late last year, December last year, as far as I can make out, in Spain, and which is where the majority of the activity was seen at first. Apparently, some of the people allegedly some of the people involved in this actually got busted in March this year, arrested by the police in Spain, and that put a little dent in the criminal activity for a while. But as we know, cybercrime abhors a vacuum, and it seems that things have come back to life. And we've seen examples of this particular thing spreading with similar messages to what I showed you before, but I'm not going to show you sample messages. Firstly, I haven't personally received any samples. And secondly, the language, the text that's used and whatnot is rapidly changing over time. But I've heard of reports, obviously in Spain, which seems to be the majority of places where people have got infected by this thing. Some reports say there may be as many as 60,000 people have inadvertently invited this thing onto their phones. We've also got reports from Poland, Germany, France, Benelux, and certainly recently, the reason I'm doing this video this week is that this week the National Cyber Security Centre in the UK issued a warning to people in the UK saying, hey, it's reached our shores, so watch out for this thing. So here's an example. This one is FedEx. Of course, nothing to do with FedEx. They're completely innocent in all of this. You can see that one's in Spanish. And this time, the website you go to, there is a website, but it doesn't say enter your credit card number, which obviously you wouldn't do because that would be suspicious. It just says download the app. And as we know, lots and lots of businesses these days want to try and pitch you on using their app instead of using your browser. So that's an example in Spanish, which in the Spanish part of the attack, the brand hijack there was FedEx. Here's an example that, by the way, that picture, just to give credit where credit's due, that comes from a Swiss cybersecurity research company called, unfortunate name in English, ProDaft. Proactive Defence Against Future Threats, I think it stands for. Not the best choice if you speak British English, where being daft as a brush means you're a bit silly. But nevertheless, they're the people who provided that picture, and that was obviously in Spanish. Here's one from the National Cybersecurity Centre in the UK. So this is a government warning. That's one that we've seen here. Probably can't, oh, that contrast's a bit better there. This one's ripping off DHL. Again, DHL is completely innocent here, and it's saying download application. Now, you can see that text at the bottom. You probably can't read it. Now, this one, because one of the problems the crooks have got is when you try and download the app, clearly this is outright malware app, and it's not going to make it, although malware does get into Google Play occasionally. This one is outright malware. No way are they going to get into Google Play. So they have to persuade you to install apps from unknown sources, as Google Android generally puts it. So on this page, they actually, at the bottom there, they actually have a series of instructions that in quite plain English, it's not quite what a native English speaker might write, but it's, as tech support goes, it's not bad. It actually explains to you, it talks to you in the second person, you need to do this, you need to do that. So it's very well done. It explains to you how to get the app to run. So it says, you'll see this settings page, etc., etc., etc. In fact, what they're hoping you'll do, and of course, so the idea is they're getting you to install an app. So there's no credit card payment, there's no, you need to fill in this. They just want you to download this app for future purposes, for tracking stuff because there's been a problem. And of course, once the app is on your phone, then it can do anything that you gave it permission to at the time you install it. And unlike a website where you might put in your credit card number now and find out the crooks are using it tomorrow, once the app is on your phone, it can carry on doing whatever it wants from then on. And the problem is, of course, that how you manage, if you have an iPhone, by the way, you could get messages like this, but of course you can't install off-market apps on an iPhone. You're stuck with the App Store, so which is both bad if you want to live life a bit fuller than everyone else, but it's also good from a cybersecurity point of view because you can't accidentally go off-market where you probably shouldn't. However, as the National Cybersecurity Centre in the UK is warning, a lot of people are saying this is Android only. If you're on iPhone, don't worry about this. The problem is that by the time you get to installing the app point on an Android phone, if you had an iPhone, you'd already be on the crook's bogus site and feeling an inclination to believe it. So if you're the kind of person who might click try downloading the app by clicking the button on the website. If you had an iPhone, you wouldn't be downloading an app, but you would be on an imposter site and you would have gone at least part of the way towards trusting the crooks. So if you've got an iPhone, this attack with the app doesn't directly apply to you, but the principle of being cautious of links in SMSs you weren't expecting nevertheless applies. Now, unfortunately, depending on which version of Android, well, that depends on how you go about deciding whether you're allowed to install off-market apps or not. So I've got Android 11 on this phone, and I'll just tell you where it is. You need to go to Settings, Apps and Notifications, Advanced, Special App Access, Install Unknown Apps. Really easy, isn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 levels down. Now, the good news is you're unlikely to go there by mistake and accidentally turn this on. But of course, when an app wants to download an off-market app, like your browser, then you can quickly get to the settings to allow those apps. And that's what the crooks are doing. You saw in this page where it actually had the instructions that tells you how to navigate your way through those settings and how to make sure that whichever browser you're using, whether it might be Chrome, in my case you see the browsers, the programs that I've got there, I've got DuckDuckGo, I'm trying to get that where you can see it. So that's the Install Unknown Apps page. By apps, there are 3 apps on there, and I've said no app that I've got, no third-party app, is allowed to download and install anything. Not even the Sophos Intercept X for mobile security product, but certainly not the browser. I've got DuckDuckGo. You might see Chrome there if you're using Chrome or Firefox or whatever it is. Now you can go into those pages and then allow the app to download, if you like, off-market apps. So it lets your browser go and fetch stuff. And the problem is if you've turned that on before, then you might already have granted your app permissions. So whichever version of Android you got, on other Androids you go to Settings, Security and Privacy, and there's a section there. In older Androids it was a global permission. You could either allow apps from unknown sources or not. The default is not, which is quite good for Android. So whichever version you've got, you need to practice how you get to that screen so that you can review which apps are allowed to install off-market apps, and ideally you want to make sure that none of them can. And the reason that you want to prevent this particular app, as opposed to as well as other apps that you're not sure about, is that it's basically what's known in the trade as a banking trojan. So once it's on your computer, it doesn't aim to get you to put in your credit card once on a fake site and run off with it and try and sell it to the next guy. It sits there waiting and watching inside your phone, waiting for you to connect to a list of websites which can be modified as required by the crooks, depending on which country they know you're in, or which country they're targeting at the moment. So it'll watch for you to connect to potentially a range of different websites, and when your own bank or a website, it doesn't have to be a bank, it could be any website that you trust and that you're used to putting personal information on, when that bank sends back its web page with all its logos, with all its JavaScript, perfect looking, with the right thing in the address bar, with the correct HTTPS certificate, then because the app is not sitting in between the server and your phone, it's basically in your phone. So we're not talking about a man in the middle or a manipulator in the middle attack here. We're talking about a man in the browser or a manipulator in the browser attack. So the crooks don't have to try and intercept what's going between you and the shopping site or you and the bank. They wait until the traffic gets back from the bank, and then they stick whatever extra fields they want. It's called HTML injection. They add extra fields into pages that have come from the bank. So they don't just look like they come from your bank or the shop or whatever, or a site you trust. They have come from there. They're just asking you for the right stuff in the wrong places often. And because you trust the site, you put in the data, but that HTML is actually going to take that data and send it off to the crooks instead. So that's one of the things that this malware can do if it gets onto your phone. So it doesn't just get one shot to get you to put in your credit card. It gets to snoop on what you're doing online at any time. So it gets to watch your outgoing web requests, and most importantly, it gets to manipulate them after they've come back, after they've been decrypted for display, but just before they get displayed. Now, you might wonder why would any app on your phone need power like that? Well, you can imagine if it's a web filtering app, like a security app, it's very good if the app could go, whoa, you're about to go to a bad site, I'm going to block you. And if bad content comes back, it says, whoa, there's a dangerous APK in there, I'm going to block you from installing that program. So the idea of filtering and watching what somebody's doing online, if you trust the application that's doing it, then it can actually be a very good thing. But the problem is, if you've gone off market and you've got a dodgy app like this, under the misapprehension that it's actually something to do with the courier company you use, some special app, if you believe that, unfortunately, it's not going to help you with your deliveries. It's going to help the crooks take money off you to get deliveries all of their own. And there are many other things apparently that this app could do. Of course, I can't give you a definitive list of what they do because the app, firstly, the SMSs can change by the campaign. Secondly, the websites they go to, as you saw there was a FedEx one in Spanish, there was a DHL one in English with some extra instructions added. Obviously, the crooks figured, wow, we need to help people do themselves in. We'll add some instructions to make this even more powerful. It can also, read and manipulate things like your own text messages. So you could be the source of messages to the next person down, and it can even apparently, or some of the versions that have been seen, have what's called a proxy in. In other words, they allow somebody else to connect via your phone out onto the internet. So it's almost like you're becoming a VPN for somebody else that you've never met and you don't know. And that's a really bad thing to happen to you because it means you're inadvertently, if you like, aiding and abetting cybercrime. And if somebody whose website gets attacked via a proxy on your phone or for other malware on your laptop, then the first finger is going to point back at you. So this malware is very definitely not something you want. So very quickly, the tips that we can go through. Number one, as always, be wary of SMSs that you weren't expecting. Number two, watch out where you're going when you click through to a website that you think is supposed to represent a legitimate company, but it doesn't look like you're on the real site when you arrive. But most importantly, in this case, because you're not typing in anything on the website, you're just clicking a button to get a program. Make sure, if you don't need to allow apps from unknown sources enabled on your Android phone, don't do it. That way, now Google Play, just like Apple's App Store, it's not perfect. Malware gets into Google Play much more often than you might like, but at least Google does some curation there. It's not a free-for-all. They don't allow any app, and if a bad app is found, then at least they can get rid of it. So it's not like they're doing nothing. It may not be perfect, but it does much more than allowing your phone to go to any website you like and install any app from any person, known or unknown. So if you can and if you ever need to install an off-market app on Android, make sure that you go back into that settings page that I showed you and turn it off afterwards. So I guess that's sort of tip 3.5 or tip 4. Learn where the control settings are in your version of Android that let you prevent the use of off-market apps from unknown sources. So the default behavior of Android is you should be stuck to the Play Store. You can liberate yourself, but if you do, don't leave your phone like that. Protect yourself from yourself by if you really need to install an off-market app, do it the once and then go back in and lock your phone down again, which will prevent a disaster last time. And lastly, if you don't have some kind of antivirus on your phone, on your Android, do consider getting one. There's only a bit of crass commercialism in this talk. Sophos has one. It is 100% free. You can find it. Just go to sophos.com/free tools, or just go to Google Play Store and look. You see the logo in the middle there. X stands for Intercept X. X for interception, and that's the mobile version of what I guess in the olden days would have been called an antivirus product. And importantly, like any good threat prevention program, it doesn't just look for bad files. And we detect this Flubot. We don't call it Flubot. The detection name, if you get it, you'll see something like banker dash and then some letters that for the particular variant as they evolve over time. And banker means that it's a malicious program that is, amongst the many things that it does, it tries to go after your banking credentials. As I explained, this thing waits for you to connect to sites, and the Flubot waits for you to connect to things like your bank, and then manipulates what you get back so that it adds extra fields into the forms to try and trick you into putting into data that you shouldn't. But the other thing that our product does, there are many other products that do similar things, but don't just look for one that does scanning of stuff that comes down. Look for a product like ours that can do web filtering on the way out. I already mentioned, why would you ever want to have an app that spies on you while you're browsing and worries about the content that comes back? Well, worrying about the content that comes back is a great way of stopping malware. But worrying in advance about the sites that you go to first is a fantastic way of stopping you even getting anywhere near harm's way in the first place. Because even if you've got off-market apps allowed, and even if you don't have any way of detecting the malware that might come down from a website, if you know the website's bad and your security program won't let you go in the first place, then no problems are going to occur because you're actually protected at the earliest possible stage. So remember that cybersecurity these days, folks, it really is not just about keeping the bad stuff out. It is as much about keeping the good stuff in. So that's the product to look for. If you haven't got one and you would like a free one, Sophos Intercept X for mobile. Get it from Google Play or just go to sophos.com/free tools. So thanks for listening, everybody. Be careful of anybody who tells you on your Android phone, hey, I've got this cool app for you, but you need to lower your security settings to install it. That doesn't sound right when I put it like that. And if that's the way you think about it when someone asks you to do something like that, hey, turn off this setting, allow this. If you never allow that to happen, then you will be in a much safer place. So thanks for listening, everybody, and until next week, stay secure.